So in terms of that listing, typically, how do you and your wife usually go about that? Do you have some specific things that you do that helps you, I guess I'll put this in air quotes, that helps you hear what people are saying or are asking for? What's your processes around that?
I don't know if I wish that we were more formal in what we did. I actually think it's something that my wife and I typically do pretty well. I think that kind of the way we're wired, the way we work, people tend to talk to us and tell us. And so we ask for feedback often. So some of it you can do on social media. You can, produce polls if you want to. We ask for feedback in the weekly emails that we send out, allow people to respond back to us. My wife is pretty involved on Instagram. She's fairly available there. And people who have questions, she gets to kind of hear those responses. And then we are kind of community people who are pretty engaged. And so we just ask a lot of questions. And I try to be a good question asker because most people want to talk about themselves. And if you ask them, hey, tell me about this with you, most people will give you an answer. And if you can listen to what they're saying, then you have the ability to take that, hear what they need, and see if you can translate that into a helpful part of your business. So good listeners sometimes just open their ears, and sometimes you open your mouth for a moment and then you shut it and then you ask a good question, you move on.
That is such good advice. And and that is another rare skill. I have to say, being able to ask good questions is actually a skill that some people can do well naturally. Most people have to learn how to do it because it's easy to ask questions in a way that either leads the conversation and often can lead it away from where it should really be going, or it ends up flipping it around. And it's just like people feel like they then have to talk about you instead of them talking about
Mhm,
them. So,
mhm.
so you gave us a little bit of an example in terms of how you might phrase a question. You got a couple of other examples about how you might phrase questions to get people talking about themselves.
Yeah, I think depending upon what your specific you don't wanna approach people with an agenda that you are trying to get something out of them. But when you are talking with people and you care about them and you care about having some form of relationship with them. I'm sure that there are people who feel like they have a relationship with our family because they read our emails and they watch us online and they think that they know us. And to a degree, they know what it is we choose to share. But I think that there are different skills to asking questions online. People are less willing. It takes time. The pressure of the social kind of having a face to face conversation is different. I think it's helpful if you're asking in a media standpoint. I think the bigger, the broader the question, it kind of is helpful. It's it it allows for more people to identify with the question, like, what's the biggest thing you're struggling with right now? Would you let me know what challenge you are facing? Would you like, hey, I'd love to if you would want to respond back. I wrote something to on my parenting email the other day and it was talking about fear, like three things to talk about being fearful as a parent. And I just said, "Hey, I'd love it if you wanted to respond back and let me know the things that you're most afraid of right now. Like what?" And so like asking people for that. And a lot of times you have to do it often in the digital space. Like it is repetitive. I think person to person, being a good question asker, someone who most of the time, if you're a curious person and you just want to know more about them, hey, tell me about your family. How much sleep are you guys getting as new parents? Hey, how's this new job affecting your kind of workout schedule these days? Hey, like as you are going, like being a curious person and kind of combining two things into one, like you need to identify where they're coming from. Tell me a story. Here's the thing. Parents love talking about their kids. They will talk about their kids. You and I've talked about your kids. I've talked about my kids. Parents are proud. They love talking about their kids and you just, get them talking and all of a sudden you start understanding like, oh, this is their world and this is how that works. And then you can my friend, a friend of mine, my old boss used to talk about, he called it the ladder of abstraction. And you have this kind of upper level question of, you know, how is your day? And then it goes down like, how is your afternoon? How was your afternoon practice at school? What did the coach say to you this afternoon after practice at school? Like, you are getting more specific in your questions, and so I think you let people start big, and you kind of, funnel that down a little bit to get a little more insight into who people are.
Yeah. 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 And depending on whether they're teenagers or not, it can determine on how much words you get back in response.
Mostly grunts. Yeah. Oh, fine, whatever. So, yes.
I laugh. Like I said, my husband and I raised two kids through their teenage years, and they do actually turn out into quite good adults, once they get past that stage. But yeah, it's fun. We like to laugh about it. It can be a little awkward when you're going through
Mhm.
it, but it's fun. Yeah, yeah. I reckon with teenagers, the art of silence is just listening. Silence is just the best technique you could ever come up with.